Have you heard of something called liminal spaces? The definition of the word liminal is being at the boundary or threshold of something. Not something physical, like a room or a house, but something temporal. It's standing between what has happened and what is yet to happen. Now, this might sound crazy, but here are some pictures that will make you feel exactly what I'm talking about. These are some of the bizarre, transitory spaces. Now, can you tell me what it was that you felt? Was it nostalgia, or maybe something more complicated, more layered than just the feeling of something that went by? The reason why I started the video with the concept of liminal spaces is because of an animated series that I'm sure everyone has seen. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone. I'm talking about Hanna-Barbera's Tom and Jerry show. This is a channel about paintings and other forms of art. You might find it bizarre that I'm talking about a kids' animated show, but art is not limited to just the canvas, right? It can be found anywhere. And Tom and Jerry was a work of art. Now, I'm not talking about the hilarious cat and mouse chase. I'm talking about the spaces in the show that only lasted for a few frames. The transitory artworks that were often not noticed, but they created a massive impact. The first short film, yes, Tom and Jerry was a series of short films which were shown in the movie theaters. But for the sake of simplicity, let's call them episodes. The first episode came out in 1940, and all the things that you see in it were hand-drawn. This was nothing special, as most of the animated shows back then were hand-drawn. What was special is the effort the artists put into making these frames that would only last for a few seconds. While there are many examples that I can show, I want to focus on one episode that stood out from the rest. The episode Mouse in Manhattan is about Jerry going to the sprawling city of New York and exploring the strange world of Manhattan. Every frame is a painting that makes you experience the strange yet familiar liminal feeling. Since these frames were made for the background and would not require much motion, the artists gave their best to make the most enchanting 2D art. And it worked. Take a look at this picture of Times Square from the show. The sun is setting and the rich blue color is creeping in, creating a beautiful contrast of blue and orange. The streets are mostly empty, and if you noticed, you see a few Easter eggs such as the theater screening Tom and Jerry, how this place is called Park Central. Everything is shown from the perspective of a tiny mouse, which makes the whole frame looks massive and more impactful. Another thing to note is how everything about the city is blue. The sky, the buildings, the table, everything has a shade of blue here. You can barely see any people in these frames, and this is very important. The sense of liminal space is strongest when there is a lack of people. I'll explain why. But before, painters have used the same principle in their artwork to create similar effect. Most of Edward Hopper's artworks put us in empty, desolate places. Okay, but why do we get this feeling when we see these liminal spaces? Well, there's an interesting theory about it. If you take a look at all the images of liminal spaces, they're all tied together by one common theme. It might not be obvious because we're often lost in emotions that analysis takes the back seat. But don't worry, that's why I'm here. Liminal spaces in animated shows, artworks, and even pictures make you feel weird because of two reasons. The first is, it puts you in a space where you're not supposed to stay for long. Like here, you're in the middle of the street at night. Here, you're on a bridge. Here, you're in the train station, and here, you are in a hotel lobby. We are in these places for a short period. They're the bridges that connect us from point A to B. This is why we feel bizarre when we see these places in paintings or photos. It makes us feel that we are stuck there. It makes us feel that we are standing somewhere we don't belong or we're not supposed to be there. But what about these images that show the inside of a house? The stairs, the living room, the hall? Or what about these paintings by Wilhelm Hammershøi? These paintings put the viewers inside a simple house, and we still get that liminal sense. I mean, we're all supposed to be inside our houses, right? So why do we get the same feeling? Well, this is where the second reason comes in: loneliness. Notice how in these images, the viewer is all alone. A clean and empty house with no one around. Sure, you live inside a house, but how often have you just stood all alone in an empty room, doing nothing? If you put a person in these frames who is close to you or looking at you, you find a reason to stay inside the room. But without them, your mind wants you to just walk ahead and go to your destination. This tension is what creates the liminal sense in these paintings. But I want to talk about the animation style of the show, because that has a major impact in the feeling that we get when we see these photos. Okay, so the artists created these background frames just to fill in the space. That's it. The main focus was the two characters, Tom and Jerry. right? Well, I don't think these background paintings were made without any thought. I think the artists had something in their mind while making them. Unfortunately, I can't ask the animators if they were inspired by the works of Edward Hopper, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were. There are a lot of similarities between Hopper's paintings and these frames, and it's not like the artists did not know about Hopper. During my research, I found something interesting. The show had 3 eras, and the art style changed drastically with each one. The 8-year-old me finally knows why some of the episodes of the show looked so different from each other. The first was the Hanna-Barbera era, or you can call it Hanna-Barbera? I'm sorry. This is the era when almost all the liminal frames were made. The moody style of these frames is what makes these episodes stand out. The reason why I said that the animators had a major role in making these liminal frames is because once the Hanna-Barbera era was over, the art style changed completely and the liminal spaces were gone. I mean, just look at some of the stills from the Gene Dici era. The animation was done by Rembrandt Studios. It felt like the Tom and Jerry show lost its essence. Things just didn't feel the same. It was not just the art style, but the lack of attention to the background art. And don't take my word for it, even the director of this series accepted that the episodes did not look good due to inexperienced animators and a low budget. He even said, and I quote, "They could have all been better animated, true to the characters." The third era of the show was helmed by Chuck Jones, known for his work in Looney Tunes show. And here we see another shift in the art style, and this time we get the same liminal essence, but in a different way. In the episode Nobody Loves Me, which is a very witty name, you can see that the artists put a lot of effort in making the background art. It was almost as if the artists were inspired by De Chirico's artworks. Contrasting pastel colors and uneven shapes can be seen all over. But here's something interesting. Perhaps Chuck Jones understood the importance of liminal spaces in these episodes, because there are specific long shots of some of these bizarre liminal spaces, like the cheese house sequence. I mean, look at how bizarre the whole thing is. The eerie silence, the interior design of the Swiss cheese house, there is a sense of comfort in this liminal space. Unfortunately, every episode that came out after the Chuck Jones era was, how do I say it, garbage. The background was an ISO, the animation looked unbelievably bad, and the artistry that went into making this beautiful show was lost. And don't even get me started about the latest animated Tom and Jerry. I can go on a rant for hours. I think we can collectively agree that the good version of the show ended with the departure of Chuck Jones. Tom and Jerry was a show made for kids, but no matter what your age is, it is a part of everyone's childhood. I find it so interesting that the show that was just made for the gags could possess such powerful images. It is bizarre seeing scenes from the show in such a different light. As Christmas approaches, I find these particular images from the show very powerful. It makes me feel as if I have experienced something that I'm yet to experience. These liminal spaces blur the separation of time, mixing every experience that I've had with every experience I'm yet to feel. And with that, we come to the end of this video. Thank you for taking out your precious time and watching my work. Your time is my hard work's reward. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, consider subscribing. Till we meet next time, have a great day ahead.